Good evening and welcome to the Township of Woolwich Council meeting on August 22nd, 2022. We're now live on YouTube. I will start with roll call of council. I'm Mayor Shantz and present and chairing this meeting. Councillor Martin.
Present.
Councillor McMillan.
Present.
Councillor Merlihan.
I'm present.
Councillor Redekop. And Councillor Shantz.
Present.
Thank you. Can I have a motion that council reconvenes in open session, please? Moved by Councillor Redekop, seconded by Councillor McMillan. All those in favor? That's carried. Let's begin the meeting with a moment of silence. Thank you. I would start by acknowledging that the land on which we meet has been here from time immemorial. People have inhabited southern Ontario for about 10,000 years, and we acknowledge the Attawandaron or Chinantan, also called the Neutral people, the Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee peoples who lived here when the settlers arrived and who share this land with us. May we together learn to care for and respect each other, our flora and fauna, and the land we inhabit together. Disclosures of pecuniary interest. I would declare pecuniary interest on item number 10.1, the Elmira Core Urban Study. We own a property in the core area. Anyone else? Okay. Thank you. We have one item to come forward from closed session this evening, and that is an appointment to the Woolwich Heritage Committee. The motion that the Council of the Township of Woolwich, considering report C16-2022, respecting an appointment to the Woolwich Heritage Committee, appoint Martin England to the committee for a term ending December 31st, 2022. And I understand that that committee actually will sit into the first quarter of 2023. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Martin and Councillor Merlihan. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. We have minutes from Council June 27th, Committee of the Whole August 8th, and Special Council August 8th. Are there any errors, omissions, changes, comments, or otherwise? Seeing none, can I have a motion to adopt the minutes? Councillor Shantz, seconded by Councillor Redekop. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. There are no public meetings and there are no presentations. And as we move into delegations on the Elmira Core Urban Design Study, I'll ask Councillor Merlihan to take the chair, please. Do you want to do it from there, Pat? Or?
I can do it from here. It's fine. Thank you. Okay, we are going to start with the Elmira Core Urban Design Study. We're going to hear from our Director of Development Services, Deanne Fries. So Deanne, if you would like to start the presentation, and then we will hear from the Planning Partnership people, Donna Hind and Wao Ying DiGiorno. We'll also be hearing from them, but we will let Deanne take it away. Thank you.
Thank you, through you, Acting Chair. So the Elmira Downtown Study, and Donna is going to present the details of the study, but what staff are asking Council of today is to approve the study, and then also included with the report, there is a approximate budget for the items that are included within the report to plan to build out the entire plan for the downtown. So that's also included in the report. And then at this time, staff are just recommending that council consider that and consider the items through future budget deliberations. So I'll pass this over to Donna now so she can present the details of the plan itself.
Thanks, Deanne. Maybe I will also ask my business partner, Wai Ying, to turn your camera and mic on as well. I'm going to just share my screen. And hopefully everyone is seeing my screen now. Yes? You seeing it, Wai-Ying?
Yes, we
Yeah,
have that,
okay,
Donna. Thank you.
awesome. Okay, thank you very much. Well, we're very happy to be invited to share the results of the urban design study for Elmira's core tonight. So both Wai-Ying and I will be walking you through some of the highlights of the document. The purpose of the study was to create a framework to guide long-term development and enhancement in the core area, and in particular to implement the municipality's official plan vision and principles and policies. We were also asked to prepare a streetscape plan to guide both the short and the longer term enhancements to the core area. We were very aware of the framework of the official plan, and at all of our public meetings began our sessions with the principles that form the foundation of the official plan to make sure everyone knew that we were building on that terrific foundation. Along the way, we've had extended several opportunities for people to share their thoughts and ideas on the urban design study. We began the process with some one-on-one conversations with councillors and some business owners. We've always received comments by email. We've had 2 public workshops, one in November and a second one in February. We had a really well participated in online survey that was launched for about 3 weeks, and we had almost 800 people that completed that survey, and generally gave us some really strong support for the direction that we were taking with the urban design study. The work that we've done has built on the community improvement plan that was done for the area, completed in 2019, a terrific document. So before I hand it over to Wai-Ying in a couple of slides, the red outlined area is the study area that we used for the urban design study. So you can see Church and Arthur going through the study area. Here's Church and here's Arthur, just to get everybody oriented. Here's the municipal building over on this side of the air photo. We began the exercise by looking at some of Elmira's key attributes, and some of them are illustrated on this screen, where there's an opportunity to create a beautiful urban green space in front of a library where we can coordinate redevelopment and public space and parking, and Wai-Ying's going to speak to that. You have beautiful adjacent neighborhoods that frame the redevelopment sites. Wai-Ying will talk about how we're very cautious of how to transition to the adjacent neighborhoods. You have continuous buildings that line the street edge. You have some public art that has some great examples of how to try and activate and beautify some public space. Gore Park, opportunity for coordinating consolidated development. And of course, we can't look away from the opportunities that could be created in the long term right up your 4 corners. So the strategies that we're going to be talking about build on the character and history of downtown. They help to create a better public realm of streets and beautiful public spaces in downtown Elmira. We're trying to connect people to places, and we're promoting context-sensitive intensification in the core area. So with that, I'll ask Wai-Ying to introduce the framework plan and then walk you through some of its key components.
Thank you. And Donna, I'll rely on you to sort of fast forward the slides.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Good evening, everyone. So the 4 strategies that Donna has just described do come together in this framework plan, which is really intended to mark key places and areas within the core and to establish the relationships and connections that pull them into a cohesive whole. So for instance, the downtown walking circuit brings all 4 quadrants of the core into a pedestrian experience. The proposed Riverwalk is an open space amenity linking 2 of your existing parks and creating a draw and destination at the north end of Arthur Street. And then, of course, we've identified some gateway locations, which are tremendous opportunities to create landmarks in the form of both buildings and landscapes that work together to enhance the sense of arrival and the sense of place.
Should I go ahead?
Yeah.
Go ahead. Okay.
Yeah, sorry, I'm going to pause and then.
Okay. There you
So
go.
this bird's eye view here illustrates a potential scenario for intensification that would see new buildings highlighted in the orange color on properties that may be considered underutilized, vacant, or being contemplated for redevelopment. The plan overall is to fill in any gaps along the two main streets with mixed-use buildings that have commercial uses on the ground floor. Residential uses are shown towards the north end, or strictly residential uses towards the north end as a transition toward existing neighborhoods in those areas. The plan clearly shows the potential for the greatest change in the core area around Arthur and Church Street quadrant. Buildings have a really important role to play in creating a pedestrian-oriented public realm. So the guidelines of the final report recommendations encourage buildings to be placed as to define the edges of the street zone, and for taller, more massive buildings to be placed in prominent locations such as corners and gateways, the ones that I mentioned in the red circles. Urban design guidance for new buildings really focus on designs that relate to and animate the streets and public spaces as pedestrian scaled places. It also focuses on designs that promote a consistent and cohesive character in the core, but also allows for new buildings to fit into this context. And of course, design that takes a context approach to building height and massing responds to and respects the existing buildings in the downtown core. In terms of urban design guidance for streets and public spaces, the most important recommendation for the core area is really to create and develop pedestrian scaled and pedestrian friendly spaces where cars and trucks may still be accommodated, but not dominate. In the very simplest of terms, this means wider sidewalks and trees. The recommendations for buildings are demonstrated in this model. And it shows how different forms of new development may be arranged to strengthen the structure of the core area. It shows a distribution and range of building heights that fit within the existing building fabric. And it shows that buildings, rather than parking lots, define the street edges and the street environment. Buildings should be designed so that they contribute to the life of the street or the public spaces with doors and windows and active uses in the ground floor. This is really important as it's really important that we maintain a consistent street wall along Arthur and Church Street. So the recommendation is to create a building base that is about 2 to 3 stories in height, with any additional stories or height stepped back from that base. Recommendations for streetscapes apply to all of the public streets in the core area, and also consider the ongoing work by the region for Arthur and Church Streets. On the next several slides are some of the elements that may find their way into the core area. Special pavements for traffic calming, and that could also be part of a broader integrated public art strategy. Flexible zones within the right-of-way, which through design may be used for parking and or patio and seating spaces within the streets. Sidewalks that are wider than they are today and that have decorative components incorporated into them. A family or suite of site furnishings that make streets and public spaces inviting and comfortable. There's no question that street trees are critical elements of great street environments. Let's be sure that we provide for the proper space as well as the proper conditions to support healthy trees within the streetscapes. Public art should also be an element of the public realm that's considered for the downtown core. Here are a few examples of different types that may be considered here. Getting around and appreciating all that the downtown has to offer, it would be made easier with a coordinated wayfinding signage program. This could be incorporated into the downtown walking circuit that I mentioned earlier, identified in the framework plan. Wayfinding and signage would also be really helpful in directing people to parking options. On this and the next several slides are some ideas for public realm streetscape improvements. We see opportunities for widening the existing sidewalk and for carving out space for trees and patios, along with an opportunity to turn Mill Street into a shared street that would be designed for pedestrians, but continue to function as well for vehicles. So this is what Arthur Street looks like today. This is looking south with the tower of the old town hall in the distant. This is what Arthur Street could be in the longer term, with trees, special paving, and planters within the right of way. And this is another example showing how some of the lay-by parking spaces may be designed as permanent patio spaces. In the short term, streetscape improvements, including patios, could be achieved with decorative pavement within the roadway. This could be on one side, both sides, or across the street. This could be used to mark certain sections, such as where the concentration of restaurants are located. Movable planters where there's space against blank walls could also mark spill out areas for seating. In terms of public space in the core area, recommendations include improvements to the street edge along Gore Park, as well as the creation of a library square, new urban parks in conjunction with development blocks, a new town square outside of the municipal offices, a new public space where Wyatt and Hampton come together, and this would involve the closure of this portion of Wyatt Street. A river walk, which although technically outside of the study area, will be an important amenity within walking distance of the core and to the broader network of parks and open spaces. We imagine that the river walk will have a naturalized character and contain a main path supported by site amenities for pedestrians and cyclists. In the newly created Civic Center, the town square will be a central gathering and event space for the community. The demonstration plan here suggests that a flexible design would allow for different events and festivals to use the space. It's also suggesting that Maple Street be designed as a shared street that essentially can be temporarily closed and become part of the urban square. Furthermore, any public space that is created with the development of the lands on the east side of Maple Street should be considered in this context and provide additional opportunities for expanding the use of the town square. This is what Maple Street looks like today. And this is showing Maple Street redesigned in conjunction with the town square on the left-hand side and potential redevelopment on the right-hand side that includes a public space component. Note that the design of Maple Street allows for the two spaces to flow into one another when the street is closed off. And these are some examples of the character and scale of development that may occupy the development on the east side of Maple. Note, sorry.
Oh, sorry. Yep.
Yeah,
There you
just
go.
note that the design of the buildings allow for commercial uses in the ground floor that open onto the street, and that they also contain and show residential uses in the upper floors that overlook the street. We imagine that Library Square will be designed as a landscape plaza that contributes to the street life and contains quiet corners for sitting and reading. This demonstration plan suggests a number of things. So a comprehensive look at the site would allow for a seamless flow between the front and back spaces of the site. The existing grading condition at the corner should be capitalized on to create a sunken reading room or amphitheater of sorts. And that, in combination with a revamped streetscape and landscape improvements on all four corners, could become a landmark node or gateway into the downtown. This is what Library Square looks like today. Not bad, but could be better, as illustrated here, with the addition of site amenities, special paving, coordination of site and streetscape elements, and the creation of the sunken feature at the corner that you can see in the distance. Note too that any existing trees should be preserved and integrated into the new design. Other opportunities for public open space will come with redevelopment of sites downtown. Here on the vacant school site, we imagine that a new parkette could be part of a potential residential development. It will be situated with public street frontage so that it can be seen and accessed easily. New homes would have front doors and porches that open onto it. Walkways would connect the space to the surrounding sidewalks. And the specific programming of the park can be determined through a development process later on. This is the potential parkette envisioned on the east side of Maple Street that I described earlier. The space is to be located and designed so that it can be easily used as an extension of the future town square. This final slide captures our recommendations on mobility in the core area. Key to these are providing a range of parking options throughout the downtown, not on main streets, but within walking distance. Shifting the focus of streets and parking to support a more pedestrian-oriented downtown, whether it's the introduction of traffic calming elements or the creation of wider sidewalks and patios in strategic areas along the road. And perhaps most importantly, relocating the region's proposed cycling lane off of Arthur Street in favor of space for pedestrians, street trees, street furnishings, and patios. And that brings us to the conclusion of our presentation.
Yeah.
I'll hand it back to Donna.
Thanks, Wayne. I'm going to stop sharing and happy to pull up any slides if we need them for the questions.
Okay, thank you very much for the presentation. Any members of council have questions for either Donna or Wei Ying? Councillor McMillan. Councillor McMillan, you are muted at the moment.
2.5 years we've been doing this and I'm still making that mistake. I apologize. Thank you, Chair, through you. First of all, thank you for the presentation. This is really exciting. Some fantastic looking pictures there. After we started this process, the region started their own official plan review. One of the things that came out of the regional official plan was a focus on 15-minute walking neighborhoods. How does this plan fit into that idea? And you said something that was really exciting that I hope you could make part of your answer, and that was we want our downtown to be accessible by cars, but not dominated by cars. And is it possible to have 15-minute walking neighborhoods that are dominated by cars?
That is a great question. I don't know why Ying or want me to. I'll start and then I'm going to hand it over to you. I mean, Elmira has all the raw ingredients for exactly that. Almost everything on that drawing is within a 15-minute walk. And so the challenge that we've had from the beginning is how to shift the balance from a focus on cars to a focus on putting pedestrians first. And so making streets greener, making sidewalks as wide as we can make them, adding additional green spaces as destinations through the town center. Wei Ying, how do you want to weigh in on that? Because it's a great question.
Oh, I have lots to say about that. I would say, yes, you can have a walkable and 15-minute neighborhood and still have cars for sure. I don't think that our plan is suggesting that we don't have cars, that we don't have parking. We're absolutely trying to balance the two because there is a need for both. I think, as Donna mentioned, it's definitely about finding that fine balance. And so all of the things that we've introduced, and I think one of the major recommendations that we made was about this whole idea of shifting the cycling path off of Arthur Street. I think that's a big move. And I know that the region had proposed and shown it on Arthur Street, but through our work, we very clearly identified that we need the space. So you're very limited in how much space you have within the right of way between the two buildings to accommodate all of the many things that is supposed to make a great streetscape. So benches and trees and light standards and planters and, you know, places to sit, places to eat in front of the restaurants. Those are all really important things. We didn't feel in our recommendation that the bike path necessarily needs to be there. It can be on any other, you know, one of the other streets that are just off of the main street and still allow cyclists to park and lock up their bikes and walk a block into the main street. So I think that's really important, a really important part of pedestrianizing and making walkable what you have there today.
Thank you.
Sorry, thank you. Actually, just to bounce off of the question about the dedicated cycle lanes that the region is preferring, How much of your plan will go up in smoke if the region persists in removing all of the downtown parking and puts in the dedicated cycle lanes on both sides?
Yeah, I mean, it's not just removing all of the downtown parking, it's removing the space that you could have available to add additional street trees. And we heard trees, 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 please give us more trees. We've lost all of our trees. So it's aggressive to have a bike lane on both sides of the road at the expense of everybody else that wants to use that very precious piece of real estate, as Wai-Ying said, between the buildings that line both sides of that street. So you want to be careful on what you end up accepting on that street. Because as Wai-Ying said, it's at the expense of the opportunity to put some on-site on-street patios, to have a wider zone for trees, to have a wider zone for benches and a wider pedestrian space.
And mind you too, that, the dedicated cycling lane not on Arthur Street doesn't mean that cyclists can't go on Arthur Street.
Right.
It's not a
Yes,
dedicated
absolutely.
lane. It's a different style of cycling, I would say. On a dedicated lane, it's a much faster speed. Whereas when you know that there's a pedestrian zone with benches and trees and traffic calming and paving, as a cyclist, you're slowing down or you're dismounting and walking in, which is what you should do in a main street.
Okay, thank you. Any members of council have questions? Councillor Shantz?
Thank you. Through you to the delegates. I'd like to piggyback onto the cycling. And I talked to some pretty avid cyclers, and I talked to them about having cycling lanes only on one side of a street rather than two. And they suggested that the cyclists that are really into cycling would not want to cross the street to use a bike lane. They would just go down the road to where it is. They wouldn't cross the street to use the bike lane. So I'm concerned about going back a block and trying to keep cyclists off the main drag if that's their destination. I know they did it in Kitchener, where they closed off a lane on Bridgeport Road and Herb Street, and they were a block apart. And they could have easily had cyclists going both ways on a whole width of a traffic lane, but yet they blocked off two traffic lanes, one on each street that were a block away. So I guess I don't know what I'm trying to say other than I'm not sure whether cycling off the main street, if that's where their destination is, whether they would go for that or not.
But remember what Wai-Ying said, they can still come over. Nobody's stopping them from riding their bike on one of the cross streets over to the main street, parking, enjoying downtown Elmira. So it's a balance. It's like, we can say that over and over. You really have to be careful what you're giving up when you think about those bike lanes. We talked to lots of cyclists on our public sessions, and they were fine with dedicated cycling lane being on a parallel street to Arthur Street. And as everybody knows, cyclists can still travel in a travel lane. Nobody's stopping them from going down the travel lane.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions from council? Anybody want to weigh in? I have Councillor McMillan.
Yeah, Chair. Sorry, I'm not sure what the process is here for the meeting. Will we have questions for our staff after this presentation? Is that later in the agenda, or will we talk to our staff kind of right now?
Yeah, we can do that. Sure.
Okay. I guess my question to our staff would be, what's next steps? Like, we've got this plan, and then what do we do with this plan? And how does that get implemented? I've had somebody call me from the community that was worried that, everything that's in the plan is going to be, shovels in the ground next year. And they're worried about that. So,
yeah,
I understand that's not next steps, but maybe we could talk about what next steps are.
Ms. Freeze?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So yeah, this is going to take a long time to implement the full plan, but we need a plan in place in order to develop that vision and have something to work towards. So there's a lot of private investment that would have to happen in the area for the privately developed properties. And then there's also a lot of public investment, and that's why the budget estimation was included with the report as well, because each of these components has a significant budget component with it, and we'll add them over time through budget deliberations to get individual pieces actually implemented that are on the public property. So our first opportunity is with the region and the reconstruction of Arthur Street. We have an opportunity now because the street is going to be torn up. So we have an opportunity to try to implement some of these elements of this plan now. So we will be coming back to council with a budget request for that piece. And then over time, we'll gradually try to time individual public pieces with other infrastructure improvements that are going on at the same time. But yeah, it will take a long time to build out this plan, but we need a plan in place in order to guide development and guide the public process as well, so that things like the Arthur Street redevelopment, we can have educated comments that have goals of implementing this plan as well. So I don't have a time frame on, it's going to be 1 year, it's going to be 10 years, it's going to be 20 years, and I can't answer that question. It's going to be as infrastructure projects come on board and as we get budget allocations to do this. Because I don't think council wants to allocate the full budget in this meeting right now.
Technically, we can't do that, but anyway, Councillor McMillan.
Yeah, just a quick follow-up. Does having a plan like this help us secure funding from upper levels of government? And would having a plan like this help us, with something else like lobbying the school board to, make it declare surplus the old Riverside School?
Yeah, absolutely. Wherever there's opportunities, if there's some kind of funding that comes out from a public level, we can apply for that using our plan as a guide. Whenever there's an opportunity, we can use it. So it does help us. We just have to look for those opportunities.
Okay. Deanne, I'm just wondering, do you have an update? Was there anything from the region about the comments that we sent back about the dedicated bike lanes? And
yeah, so I don't have an update yet. We provided those comments to the region, so they know that we would like to implement the elements of this design plan with the Arthur Street reconstruction. I don't have a response yet about what the region's planning on doing, whether or not they want to continue with bike lanes on Arthur or they're willing to move them off. I don't have an answer yet.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Redekop, did you have your hand? Okay, yep.
Chair to Ms. Freeze, is this also?
Oh, you need your microphone, the main one, the big one on the desk. Yeah,
Sorry.
there you go.
Thank you. 2.5 years, still haven't figured it out. Anyway, yes, to you, Ms. Freeze. Is this also contingent on a bypass being built? Because we don't want large trucks going through Arthur and Church either. So could you give us an update on that?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, it's not contingent on the bypass being located, but it does anticipate that the bypass will eventually happen and we'll be able to get those larger trucks off of the Arthur Street main downtown area. So it's they can happen in parallel. It doesn't have to have the bypass before we can implement some of the changes in this plan. But it does kind of look towards that as really being the way to implement the full vision of the plan. So the region has started that EA process and they've retained a consultant. The township does have a seat on that steering committee as well. So,
okay, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Shantz.
Thank you. Through you to Ms. Freeze. And I think Councillor Merlehan kind of alluded to it at the beginning. How much, how much push do we have that we can give the region on this and change their minds on their design? I guess we spent a lot of money trying to redesign this, and we're talking about $1 million here. And if the region isn't on board, where does that put us? And how can we make sure that if we want to implement this, it actually gets implemented and not get thrown out with their plan?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So I think that the region's still in the design phases, and we do have a stake on that as well. We're part of that steering committee. I think that council's acceptance of the plan today or approval of the plan today would really help, because that supports the comments that we provided that ask for that on-street flexible parking and the removal of the bike lanes. So right now we're still at a design stage with the region, and they're doing their work in the background as well.
Okay, Council, any more questions? Councilor Martin? Okay, go ahead.
Not a question as much as clarification. This is just a guiding document that'll be implemented 10, 20 years to give us direction where we're going to end up. Am I correct on that?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, that's correct.
Okay, Councilor Shantz.
Sorry, just one last question. I noticed that the total bill is considerably higher than what we're suggesting today. And I'm wondering why that wasn't all presented as one rather than the million, the whole total budget, or are we just talking about Arthur and Church Street?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. The budget that's indicated in that report would be just for the Arthur Street section, because that's the one that we are looking to undertake in the immediate future with the region.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
And sorry, just one more thing to answer Councillor Martin's question. The plan does also include some recommendations for the new zoning bylaw. So there will be a regulating document that will also help implement the changes in this plan.
That is going to be a good segue into my next question, which was about the zoning. I kind of wanted to know what the next steps would have been for the zoning of those properties, whether we can do some sort of blanket zoning for the areas, or whether we have to do individual properties for the next little while and get agreements with property owners. Maybe we'll talk about that first.
Yeah, so staff are working on a new zoning bylaw right now, and we are looking at implementing this plan as far as a mixed use type of zone in the downtown area. It would continue to permit the existing uses, but would also allow additional uses. So we can do that through the township-wide zoning bylaw.
Okay, and I guess my next question about the zoning, maybe Donna or Wei Ying could answer. Through the public consultation, we heard a lot of specific things that that residents were looking for, restaurants and things like that. When you came up with the framework, did you consider those options, I guess, on the plan, some of those amenities, or how did you approach those particular requests?
Yeah, and I'll get Wei Ying to turn her mic on as well. Yeah, the drawings or the buildings that you're seeing, the new buildings that you're seeing illustrated on the plan, all are assuming that there's ground floor commercial and retail uses, because you're absolutely right. Every time we had a public session, we heard about people talking about the need for more shops, a grocery store, hardware store, like the other retail that they could help them meet their day-to-day needs for goods and services. Wei Ying, your response to how the buildings are designed? Yeah,
not much more to add to that other than exactly what Donna said, which was all the mixed use designations or any areas that we're recommending to become mixed use has that ability or has the requirement for the non-residential on the ground floor. I think also in there, if I recall correctly, that there was a specific height that we had identified for the ground floor being 4.5 meters, which is, more typical non-residential building height, so that not only are we allowing for and accommodating a non-residential use, but we're also trying to bring some consistency to the street wall along the commercial main streets.
Okay, and then just finally, how did you do any kind of calculations as to, how much more square footage of commercial is being added to the downtown? Do we know that? Just based on the plan?
We did something in the background. We didn't put it into the report because we didn't want to put a number out there, but just based on the plan that we drew, for sure, we were able to calculate some general areas. And if we assume that all the orange buildings that are mixed use, all their ground floors are non-residential, we can come up with that number. But, just bearing in mind too, caution that, they're boxes and rectangles that we're drawing. They're not necessarily real buildings, right? So
Right.
Yeah.
I understand. I was
it's our
just
best stab.
curious. Yeah. I mean, if you had to guess, would it be 25% more or 50% more or?
I think it's probably, no, I can't guess. Yeah,
Okay, no problem.
we can follow up and send you a number.
Okay. If council doesn't have any more questions of staff or the presenters, we do have delegates. And I do have to, before we hear from the delegates this evening, I need to advise of the following instructions. Clerk Smith.
Mr. Chair, it may help. The delegates have asked or have told staff that they don't think they need to speak anymore tonight. So if they're not popping on quickly, then I think that decision stands and you may be able to just skip that part.
Okay. Well, I see Hugh Welts is still online and Tina Welts. If you do want to speak, now would be the time. If not, no problem.
I do have one small comment.
Okay.
So if you need to do any instructions,
okay,
go ahead.
so Tina, I just have to read all these instructions now for you to comment. And unless it's okay by the rest of council for me not to read those instructions. Is everybody good with that? Okay. Ms. Welts, feel free to tell us your comment.
Overall, really happy to see that we're investing in our downtown core. We've been obviously building owners for a long time. The biggest thing I'm concerned with is, we talked about a lot of able-bodied stuff within our downtown core, and there isn't a lot about our, wheelchair handicap. We fought for 30 plus years to get 2 handicap parking spots downtown. And, that's a huge concern if we're going to lose those. If anything, we'd like to be expanding upon those and making sure we're having a community that is for everyone and not just able-bodied. So something to look forward, moving forward, to really keep in mind.
Okay, great. Did anybody, Donna, would you like to speak to that comment in the plan?
Could not agree more with Tina. Absolutely. Everything that will be done downtown will be guided by the rules and regulations that basically demand that municipalities accommodate parking for people of all abilities and access for people of all abilities. So absolutely agree with Tina. It's a very important consideration.
Okay. Councillor McMillan, you had a comment?
Yeah, a comment to Ms. Waltz there. Obviously, accessible parking is huge, but by creating a downtown that's more accessible to pedestrians, I think we have more of a chance to make it more accessible to people who aren't able-bodied. And I think right now, because our downtown is so car dominated, there's places where I try to cross the street and I'm lucky that I can run across.
Right.
Just even for somebody who, has a difficult time running, it would be difficult to cross our streets right now. So hopefully by making it more pedestrian friendly, we can make it more accessible to everybody. And yeah, maintaining those parking spots that are close for people that need that.
Okay, council, any questions of, I guess, the delegates or staff at this point? No? Okay. Well, thank you, Hugh and Tina Welts, for your input tonight. Feel free to stay on or you can log off at any point. Council, we do have a recommendation in front of us at the Council of the Township of Woolwich, considering report DS31 2022 respecting the Elmira Core Urban Design Study. 1, approve the urban design study as attached in Appendix A of the report, and 2, direct staff to implement through a phased approach with future budget allocations. Is there anybody that would like to move that recommendation or amend? Councillor McMillan and Councillor Redekop will second that. Does anybody want to make any comments? Councillor McMillan?
Yeah, thank you. I'll try to make it quick. I just wanted to say thank you to everybody that participated in this. The consultants, staff, council, all of the people in the public. When I ran for council 4 years ago, this was one of the things that I was most excited to tackle, the issue that I was most excited to tackle. And now that I'm not running for this upcoming election, to get this put before council tonight is really, really rewarding and exciting. So I just want to thank everybody that participated, and I'm really, really excited to see this.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else want to make a comment? No? Okay, I wouldn't mind making just a few comments. I'm super excited about this project, and it's one that I feel really confident about because of the amount of engagement from the public on this. It's out of any engagement opportunity, this like blew everything out of the water. You know, Woolwich Healthy Communities put on an event in 2019, and this was one of the biggest subjects that came out of it. A group was formed just dedicated to what we could do in downtown Elmira, and there's a lot of excitement in the community to see this happen. So I'm been really pleased with the work of the planning partnership, and it's been great working with your team there. So thank you for that. We are going to move on to the recommendations. So we have the motion on the table. All those in favor? And all those against? Okay, and that's carried. Yeah, that was a psych on Larry. Okay, so thank you, planning partnership people. We can ask Mayor Shantz to rejoin the meeting and take over as chair.
Thank you, and give me a second to find my space here. I know I declared a conflict on this, but I also know that the community put a lot of work into it. So I appreciate all the work and effort that has gone into producing this report, and look forward to what comes out of it later. Unfinished business. We have the Breslaw East Connector Road Environmental Assessment Preferred Alternative Recommendation, and I will call on Engineering Project Supervisor Ryan Tucker. Mr. Tucker, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you. I'll just share my screen here quickly. All right, can everyone see that there?
Yes.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you. All right. Good evening, Mayor Shantz and Woolwich Council members. This evening, engineering staff would like to bring back report IS 32-2021 in relation to the Breslaw Connector Road Environmental Assessment Project for Council's consideration. Previously, Council has been deadlocked on a decision for the proposed connector road in Breslaw, and I'm hoping tonight that Council can agree to move forward with the recommendation to approve the alignment proposed through the EA. I've got a brief presentation this evening that will highlight the main areas of the project and refresh Council on the proposed alignment. All right. The high-level takeaways from the problem statement for the project are as follows. A new east-west connector road is needed to facilitate future development within the community of Breslaw. Proposed road is intended to connect the historic area of Breslaw with the new Hopewell Crossing subdivision. The road is required to cross the Metrolinx rail corridor, and the corridor needs to accommodate safe, active transportation. Today, the project team has issued the notice of study commencement in March of 2019 and completed 2 public consultation centers, 1 in person and 1 virtual. Engineering and planning staff have also brought 2 previous reports in relation to the connector road to council, one in late 2021 and the other in early this year in 2022. Staff are hopeful that a final decision can be made this evening and that the notice of completion can be filed for the project. This slide briefly highlights the planning rationale that is currently in place to support the proposed connector road alignment. In 2016, Council approved the Breslaw secondary plan, which was intended to guide growth within the settlement of Breslaw. The extensions of Dolman Street as well as Greenhouse Road, that's here, Dolman Street and Greenhouse Road here, both been contemplated through draft plans and subdivision. I also wanted to bring to Council's attention that through the region's official plan amendment, a portion of the proposed connector road alignment will be brought into the urban area. So that's area CA4, which is approximately, it's just adjacent to Fountain Street, right in this area here, if you can see my cursor. So approving the recommendation for the connector road will allow the township to protect the proposed alignment and work towards acquiring the lands. Approval also allows the project to be included in the next DC background study. Impacts to the DC are anticipated to be approximately $4,400 per single detached unit. As a portion of the alignment is now being brought into the urban area through the regional official plan amendment, should development occur, there is potential for a portion of the road to be funded through local service fees as well. Approval also allows for long-term planning to take place for transportation and pedestrian routing. Staff can also start the process of negotiating a track crossing agreement with Metrolinx for the new crossing. I just wanted to show the proposed connector road alignment again and highlight to council that the project team is proposing the shortest routing that reduces environmental impact to greenfield lands and utilizes existing farm crossings where possible. The proposed alignment also provides vehicular and pedestrian connectivity between historic Breslaw and the new Hopewell Crossing subdivision. Finalizing the environmental assessment project will require a 30-day public review period triggered by a notice of study completion, followed by a further 30-day Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks review prior to the EA finally being completed. Next steps on the project are as follows. Staff are seeking endorsement of the preferred alternative this evening. Following direction on the environmental assessment, the notice of study completion will be issued in the newspaper and 30 days public review period will start. Staff anticipate finalization of the EA in October after the MECP review would be completed. And with that, I'll stop sharing my screen and I'll take any questions that council may have.
Okay, thank you. Council. Councillor McMillan.
Thank you, Mayor Shantz, through you. One of the concerns that I had about this road was that we're creating something like Homer Watson in Kitchener. That's a 4-lane road that actually operates more like a highway, and you put up a 60-kilometer speed limit, but everybody goes 80 because it's basically a highway through an urban area. Can staff speak to how through the development process, the road might not end up looking like that?
Through you, Mayor Shantz, to Councillor McMillan. I'm not sure if it'd be through the development process, but our cross section is very clear that we're proposing. It's a 2-lane cross section, so not 4 lanes. We're not looking for this to be a highway, except maybe a pedestrian highway. We're definitely, the team really did focus on that pedestrian connectivity. So we'd be looking for potential multi-use trails, things like that to facilitate pedestrian connectivity. Deanne, do you have anything else to add on that side, or?
Yeah, thank you. Just to add to that, through you, Madam Chair, through the development process side of it, these lands are proposed to be included through the ROP as new community lands. So if these are developed with the alignment approved, then we can get some allocation from those lands for the cost, as well as it will change how that that alignment would function with the residential development. So that would become more of a community road, not a highway through a subdivision, if that makes sense.
Thank you.
Councillor Shantz.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions, but first I'd like to piggyback on what Councillor McMillan just said. And I was hoping, since Breslaw really doesn't have a downtown to speak of, their Woolwich Street does not have a lot of development on it other than homes. So I was hoping that this development along the corridor could act as a gateway into Breslaw in both directions. And maybe we can hopefully look at that and maybe some store frontage along that road or something like that everybody can use and have it as, like I say, a gateway maybe coming into Breslaw. Question I do have is, if this gets passed this evening and it's something doesn't happen in the 10 years, do we have to do the EA study all over again, or can we just extend this study?
Through you, Mayor Shantz, to you, Councillor Shantz. Like you said, the environmental assessment is good for 10 years from the notice of study completion. From the finalization of the EA, which would be approximately 60 days following the notice of study completion. Should we move past that 10-year window, we can file an amendment to the EA. Also, any work that's done on the EA kind of refreshes it. So if we do acquire some lands or we do move forward and start working on the EA, that kind of does refresh it again. So basically, if we work on it within that 10-year period, if we go past the 10-year period, we can file an amendment. We don't need to do the environmental assessment again, sorry.
Okay, thank you. Before I get to Councillor Merlihan, I just want to ask a question related to Councillor Shantz's comment, and that would be probably to Ms. Fries. How is the zoning along that particular connector road set, and is it changeable? So I guess what I'm saying is, how do we look to create some kind of a downtown core along there going forward?
So at this point, these lands that are around the connector road are just to be added to the urban area through the ROP. After the ROP adds them in, then we would look at providing a zone for the lands for that community type of development. So at this time, we don't have a commercial type of community zone in place, but that would come next after these lands get added to the ROP and get added to our official plan as well.
So that's part of our official plan process after the ROP, which has just been approved. Okay, yeah. Thank you. Councillor Merlihan had his hand up. Is this a follow-up on that item, Larry? Okay, go ahead then.
Yeah, so is that something that staff is considering, or is it just going to be housing, or have you not delved in that deep?
I don't have the answers yet. Through you, Madam Chair, we're still in early stages because these are just identified now as lands to be added to community area through the ROP.
We look forward to hearing you as a delegation when that comes, Larry.
Yes, and I think we mentioned this earlier when the connector road came through, but we will need to look at an update to our Breslaw secondary plan as well. So that would consider these lands as well at that time.
Okay, thanks. Go ahead, Councillor Merlihan.
Yeah, through you, Mayor Shantz, to Ryan. In the report, it talks that there was a statement that Thomas Field Homes didn't object to the connector road outcomes, and I'm just wondering if some information changed or they had changed their mind. One of the meetings, the president, Mr. McLaughlin, suggested having a dead end with a pedestrian overpass over the Metrolinx rail line. So, and he was kind of objecting to the cost of the overall road itself on development charges. So I'm just wondering if something has changed on their end.
Yeah, through you, Mayor Shantz, to Councillor Merlihan. Sorry if there's any confusion in the report. What it should have read, if it doesn't, is that we did not have any anyone against the alignment. I totally agree. I totally understand that Thomas Field did come as a delegation. They did talk about the overpass and the costs, and I believe that was their sticking point. But as far as we understand, they don't have any issues with the proposed alignment.
Okay. Now, when we talk about the cost, it went from, we were talking $30 million and now it's like 26 point something million. What staff had given us some individual, I don't know, counseling, I guess, or information on the connector road, the greater good, I suppose, of the plan. At that point, I was informed that the development charges were going to be somewhere in the $2,600 range. And I'm just reading here, it's $4,400, which initially we were talking $5,000. Did that information change since when, we did our individual reviews to now, or?
Through you, Mayor Shantz, to Councillor Merlihan. I did review the package that we did go through with council, and I believe it was just under $4,400 that was listed for that development charge. So I again apologize if that was different than the information we shared with you, Councilor Merlan, but in the package that I did review, that it was the $4,400 that we did share with council.
Okay, I just remembered it was significantly less than this. Now, I was also told during that review that portions of where the connector road, go into developments such as Madison Group property, that the developers would be on, it would be part of their development that they would build the road. So will the development charges, the 4,400 that you're looking at here, does that not include the developer portion of building that connector road? And this is only for the rest of the road that needs to connect to Thomasfield?
Yeah, so through you, Mayor Shantz, to Councilor Merlan, the cost quoted in the report is the full amount, not taking into any consideration a local service charge for a developer. So now that there's a portion of the alignment that will be brought into the urban area, if a development application comes through, there's potential for that portion of the road to be funded through a local service policy, which would directly reduce the development charge for that portion of road. But that requires a developer to come forward with a planned subdivision, as far as I'm aware, unless Deanne can speak to that.
Okay, so if that does happen, will the development charges get amended to be less, or will the township keep the 4,400?
I believe that there is a reconciliation done on the development charges every study. So that reconciliation would adjust those development charges if there was a local service portion of the road.
Okay, thank you for that. I guess just a general comment.
So, sorry, I just want to, Deanne, did you want to add anything before?
Sorry, no, I don't think I have anything else to add. I think Ryan clarified it there.
Okay, thanks. Go ahead, Councilor Merlan.
Yeah, I was generally opposed to the connector road. I still don't really feel like the road will do what the study intends, where we're going to connect two subdivisions together. But during the review that all council had the opportunity to have, I did see the larger picture, the map. It does make sense in the grander scheme of time as Breslaw gets built out. So I actually the alignment makes more sense to me now, but the cost is still a hard one for me to really accept at this point, and it's really kind of ticking me off about the Metrolinx overpass that's 15 million of the cost on this road, when they just decide that they have a new policy that they won't accept anything but an overpass or an underpass, which are two very expensive options for any community to have to pay for. So those are my biggest objections now, but the initial alignment I'm fine with now with the additional information that I've received. So thank you.
Anyone else? Councillor Shantz, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to make a comment that I'm in favor of this. Anybody that's spent any time in Breslaw realizes that there's three areas of Breslaw. There's the old area and then the two new subdivisions. And this should help tie all three of those together. And I think, I realize it's not ideal because we have a bypass going down the center, but at least we have some way of connecting them by the road and also by multi-use trails. So I think this is a good thing going forward. I think it's something that is needed in Breslaw to try and get all those communities gelled together, and it allows the ones that are a little bit further, I guess it would be east, to get to the community center a little easier and maybe use their bikes or walk or whatever. Now they have to drive; they don't have a choice. So I'm in favor of the road.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. I also am in favor of this connector road. I've said for probably since I joined council as mayor that we really do need to connect Breslaw and try to pull it together as a community. And I see this as a way forward in that regard. I will ask for a mover and a seconder then, please. Moved by Councillor Shantz and seconded by Councillor Martin. All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. Before we pass a motion approving and receiving the consent agenda as a whole, council can remove any items for further discussion. There are some items for approval from committee of the whole. There's some correspondence and some items for information. Does anyone want to pull anything from there? I would. Okay, Councillor McMillan, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just gonna move approval of the consent agenda, but I don't have to if you.
Yeah, I was hoping to just get council's I guess to pull the one from the Canadian Mental Health Association on an Elmira Rainbow Crosswalk. I had a letter come to me on that, and I was looking for council's direction on where to go with that. Councillor McMillan?
Yeah.
I thought I saw your hand.
Yeah, well, I was just gonna say I'll move the consent agenda with everything but that. But you probably want to pull it. You like to pull it first, right?
We can do it either way. We can take the rest of the consent agenda without that.
I'll move everything but the Mental Health Association.
Okay, a seconder, Councillor Shantz. All those in favor? That's carried. So I guess I'm looking for some direction from council on where to go with the letter and with a potential rainbow crosswalk. If it's council's wish, I would give it to staff to come back with some kind of a recommendation, but it's council's purview where to go. Councillor Martin? Oh, sorry, I thought your hand was up.
No, I just moved this, but
Oh, okay.
sooner or later I will speak. I'm not in favor of it. It's not in keeping with the values of this community. So you can send this letter right back to where it came from. And having said that, I am not judgmental on the way people live and what they do. Not at all. My obligation is to respect the people, love them, treat them respectfully. And the issue, and it's not about the lifestyle, it's about using the rainbow itself. Where did the first rainbow come from? Everybody should know. It came after the big flood, Noah, the ark. And God made a covenant with his people that he would not destroy the world again with a flood, and he gave them the rainbow. So now we use that and we trash it to promote a lifestyle that is
Okay.
not correct.
Councillor Martin,
Sorry, I'll keep on. I'm just telling you, that's why I do not think that it is proper. And like I said, make it clear, I did not say anything about the lifestyle.
okay, so I hear your objection as to the use of the rainbow.
They can use anything
Councillor,
else to promote what they want, but not something that was a gift to us from God.
Councillor McMillan.
Yeah, just respectfully as I can. We can't allow, with all due respect to Councilor Martin, we can't allow statements to stand where we're calling people improper for who they are. It's not a lifestyle. It's who they are. It's their identity. And I don't think we can allow comments where we're calling people improper or some of the other things that were said to go unchallenged. I think that I'd be in support of sending this to staff for a report to find a place in the township where this would fit. I think there's lots of other communities in our region and across the world that are doing this. And I think it would be a wonderful sign of support that This is precisely the values of our community, and we are a loving place and a welcoming place. And I'd be in favor of sending this to council sending it to staff for a report to come back to council.
Thank you. Councillor Redicott.
I'd agree with what Councillor McMillan said. I think we are a very diverse community and we want to be open to all aspects of people in the township. So I would again reiterate that it should go back to staff, find an appropriate place for it.
Thank you. Councillor Merlehan.
Well, through you, Mayor Shaw's comments, I mean, I'm not shocked that those statements were made, but that was really offensive to me and to many of I have friends that identify in different ways than Councillor Martin. Our community is, our values are inclusive. They should be. Maybe not for everybody, but that's what the goal should be. So a rainbow crosswalk actually is part of my election campaign for mayor, but I would suggest that maybe we even look at, just because downtown Elmira is a regional road and working with the region has proven to be difficult, that we do something at our community centers, and not just Elmira, but Breslaw and other areas throughout Woolwich that show that we are an inclusive community. I was part of a regional collaboration work group last week at the WMC. And it came up about how little diversity we have, not just in Woolwich Township, but Wilmot, Wellesley, New North Dumfries. And, you know, what are things that we can do as a community to show more diversity, to be more welcoming? This is just one thing that I think we can do. We fly the rainbow flag in June because it is Gay Pride Month. You know, I haven't heard any outrage from the community that we do that. I'm certainly think that the community is more enlightened than some appear to be here tonight. So I would certainly approve this letter going to council or to staff to review, and in June we can maybe celebrate Pride with that initiative. You know, and you know, there are township staff that identify as gay, different than heterosexual, straight. And I really just find those statements that Councillor Martin made offensive. And I apologize on behalf of Councillor Martin that anybody had to hear those, and especially of our staff.
Councillor Martin, before you speak, I'm just going to say that I will acknowledge that Councillor Martin began his remarks by saying that he doesn't hold personal okay, this is not coming out very well, but does not hold any personal concern or dislike for that lifestyle, and for that reason I let him carry on with his own understanding from his perspective. And we are all different and are all coming at it from different points of view. So while I disagree with the way it sounded, I also respect his right to share his opinion. Councillor Martin.
Thank you. And I knew we'd end up at this place because everybody has added a whole lot more to my comments than what I even suggested. I thought I made it clear at the start, It wasn't about people. It wasn't about a lifestyle. It is strictly using the rainbow. And I don't need anybody to apologize on my behalf or to apologize to anybody else. I have the right to my opinion. And it wasn't offensive with what I said. And there's very little to argue about. The rainbow was a gift given to people when a covenant was made. And I still honor that today when I see it. So it's got nothing to do with lifestyle. I have friends in that lifestyle. I know lots of people. I make no difference. And it's a fact that we use the rainbow is my issue. Nothing else, period.
Thank you for that clarity, Councillor McMillan.
Yeah, I just want to add, it's not lifestyle. This is identity. So, I mean, since we had the first comment, it's been said 3, 4 more times about lifestyle. It's not a lifestyle. This isn't a choice that people are making. This is who they are. It's their identity. And I think that, we need to let people know that we love them for who they are. And it's not a lifestyle. It's their identity. It's who they are. And if anybody's listening, I hope that you feel welcome in our community.
Thank you for clarifying the language around that, Councillor McMillan. Appreciate that. Anyone else? Okay, so I think direction to staff would be to take the letter and to come back with a recommendation of how we can implement a rainbow crossing in Elmira and perhaps in some of other communities, or some kind of rainbow acknowledgement, whether it's a crosswalk or some other place. Fair? Okay, thank you. Staff reports and memos, restricted acts after nomination day, and our favorite term of lame duck. Clerk Smith.
Thank you, Mayor Shantz. I just wanted to provide this memo to you this evening because as of 2 p.m. on Friday, Council has become restricted under the Municipal Act from taking certain actions. Really what this means is that going forward, staff will only make recommendations and staff reports that Council can act on, and myself can answer any questions about restrictions that Council may have during meetings. The delegated authority that Council provided allows the CAO and staff to act where authorized, specifically hiring or dismissing employees, selling property or equipment worth more than $50,000, spending or incurring debt more than $50,000. One thing that will have to remain in place is that statutory municipal officers will have to continue in their roles until after the election. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Otherwise, the report is for information purposes only.
Council, any questions? Councillor Reddicock.
Reach through the mayor to Clerk Smith. What was the last thing that you said about municipal officers being in continuing to be in their role?
Yeah, so the first restricted act is that Council can no longer appoint or remove an officer of the municipality. So someone like the CAO, the clerk, the treasurer, it has to remain in that role until the election.
Okay, thank you for your clarification.
Anyone else? Okay, that was for information then. Mayor's report on regional matters. I have a number of things. We did approve the ROP, the Regional Official Plan. We did that last Thursday before Regional Council became lame duck. And some of the highlights from the ROP are focusing on 15-minute walkable communities. The population in Woolwich is slated to basically double by 2050, which is a very significant rate of growth for us and something that will need to be addressed in the coming terms of council. Overall in the region, we're expecting about a 50% increase to 900 and some by 2050, so almost 1 million people by 2050. A lot of our growth will be in the Breslaw area, but the one highlight that we've continued to retain is the countryside line, and you know, taking care of our country boundaries. One number that stood out for me at the meeting was that there was in the neighborhood of 35,000 housing starts that are currently on the books in the region, that's regionally, which would house approximately a third of that 300,000 increase in the region. So I just found that quite interesting that we have that much approved and ready to go in greenfields already. The second thing that we've been dealing with is homelessness, and we've approved a homelessness master plan. And something to highlight there is that the region is backstopping provincial responsibilities in this area quite a bit, and we are increasingly using our tax levy and other dollars that should be coming from other types of taxation to address social issues. And we're doing that here because it's the right thing to do to care for people, but it isn't the right way to do it. And we continue to lobby the province to address that issue. And the third thing I just wanted to highlight is that public health is recommending that children be vaccinated. So that is available now for the younger children, and public health is putting that forward as a request that people protect their children in that way. Any other reports from council? Councillor McMillan.
Thank you, Mayor. To you, actually, not a report, a question on your report. You mentioned that the region's backstopping the province, and I think that you're right when you say it's the right thing to do. Is there any ongoing communication with the province that the region is making you aware of about the state of things and how the housing crisis is impacting our community and our homeless, our unhoused population, and what that's putting our region into?
Yeah, I mean, the region continues to be in conversation with the province on the issues we're facing, and of course, our own representatives are very well versed in what we're doing here and how we're going about it. So we've had a number of delegations, even just at AMO, on housing to various ministers, and we'll certainly continue to advocate at that level and continue to push for those funds to come from other kinds of taxation. It's really regressive to use property tax for all of these items, and so we're looking for the province. So I mean, one of the things that's been most recently reported was the return of license plate dollars and what that could have done for social issues, for example, or another option would be a sales tax, part of the HST, for example, to be allocated to some of those issues, and that would be a much more progressive way to tax for those kinds of things.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay. Outstanding activity list. Nothing there. There is no notice of motion. If I can have a motion that the following bylaws in the hands of the clerk be read a first, second, third time and finally passed, that they be numbered as bylaw number 45-2022 to 49-2022, and that they be signed by the mayor and clerk and sealed with the corporate seal. And that is a bylaw to exempt certain lots from part lot control, a bylaw to lift reserves for Thomas Field Homes, a bylaw to amend the zoning bylaw of the Township of Woolwich for the Kiwanis House, bylaw to dedicate certain lands within the Township of Woolwich as part of a public highway, and a bylaw to confirm all actions and proceedings of council today. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Redekop, seconded by Councillor Shantz. All those in favor? And that is carried. And that brings us to the end of our agenda. So notice to adjourn to meet again in regular session on Monday, September 19th, 2022. Moved by Councillor Shantz and seconded by Councillor McMillan. All those in favor? And that's carried. In closing, council would like to thank all those who participated or tuned into the meeting tonight on our YouTube live stream. I'll remind council to stay connected until we receive confirmation that the live stream has stopped. And good night, everyone.